Hi, everyone. Welcome to my Social Justice and Human Rights Master's Degree Compendium video presentation. Um, I look forward to sharing a little bit more about my compendium with you in depth. The title of my compendium, as you will see as you look through it, is Exploring the Intersectional Barriers Faced by Those Crossing the US-Mexico Border. Um, I just want to emphasize the importance of this compendium project as a whole. Given our current administration, I feel that immigration issues, especially along the border, are likely more relevant or prevalent than ever at this time. And so I find it very important to be able to showcase this throughout my compendium, the challenges that are faced by this vulnerable population. Um, Also, being able to use this as sort of a educational tool or learning opportunity. Again, welcome. And when you're looking at my first page of my compendium, you can sort of view it as an introduction. Um, I would just like to briefly touch on two of my major themes throughout the compendium. One is intersectionality. And if you are not super familiar with that term, it can be defined as, which was actually coined by professor and activist Kimberly Crenshaw. Um, and her main definition is intersectionality is a lens through which you can see where the power comes and collides, where it interlocks and intersects. Many times, the framework erases what happens to people who are subject to all of these things. So that's sort of an overview of intersectionality, broadly speaking. Another major theme within my compendium is the idea of deterrence. And the main broad definition of deterrence, which you will see, is policies or acts that aim to change the motivations of migrants, or I would add immigrants as well. Um, Intersectionality and deterrence are two major themes within this project and are sort of what binds the project together as a whole. Um, I would also like to note that deterrence can also be used as a way to have the US population sort of ignore or be deterred from what is actually happening at the border through purposeful governmental policies that are put in place to amplify the term illegal, and therefore this population is only seen as illegal by majority of US communities and are thus not important human beings with basic human rights and are subject to many different challenges or intersectional sort of unique place that they're in. So moving forward, um, I just wanted to take a moment to tell you a little bit more about me. My name is Devin Randall, and my pronouns are she, her. Um, Social justice and human rights are two very important issues to me, and I really couldn't be happier to have you here viewing this video. I'm excited to share with you more about my interests and passions for social justice and human rights. Um, as you will see in my About Me page, I am a queer woman who is born and raised in Missoula, Montana. So, as you can imagine, definitely have been presented with a very, very large lack of diversity within the state itself, um, making it sort of a passion of mine to explore and delve deeper into these issues as a whole. And throughout the master's degree program, the social justice human rights, I found myself leaning more towards immigrant justice at the border. And I, again, couldn't be happier to have you here. Okay, so moving forward, within my compendium, you will see my abstract and vision page. Um, the abstract is sort of the bulk of, or the view of the compendium. So this compendium will focus on intersectionality and deterrence, whilst arguing that the US has created a flawed policy system that has yielded only negative results. I would say that this project as a whole represents a call for equality and justice for vulnerable immigrant and migrant communities, as well as a sort of call for you to really think about what is happening at the border and to evoke some empathy towards this population. Um, my main vision here is before you sort of delve any deeper into the project, I would like you to consider a thought and a question. Um, so, nearly everyone living in the US comes from some sort of migration and a familiar background. So, if you think about it, we're all technically, in the eyes of our current administration, considered illegal. Um, as without our ancestors, we would not be occupying space here in the US. I will note, despite obviously original indigenous populations. Thus, I ask, why are communities allowing unjustifiable acts to occur to current immigrants? I think that's a very important and relevant question that you should come back to as you read my compendium. So, um, moving on here. Um, So you will see a page within my compendium, the narrative or synthesis essay that I have written to sort of pull the project together. I really encourage you to read through this tab in full in order to complete and deeper your understanding of my project as a whole. My essay continues to argue, very similar to my compendium, that empathy must be integrated into US communities and individuals in order to shift how vulnerable immigrant slash migrant populations are viewed. And then here I would just like to point out this image here. I believe this is a few years old, so it's not completely accurate 2026, but it's very prevalent. It's showcasing the amount of daily entries or attempts along the US Mexico border. You can see here along Texas, for example, Brownsville, there were 35,546. Um, and sort of a little higher here on the border of New Mexico. And then here, as you get into the border of California, actually being the largest at 94,925 persons. So there's an average of 100,000 daily injuries or attempts into the US. So just keep that in mind, as you read through the compendium, that that is a large amount of people that are facing extreme challenges as they're trying to better their lives and ultimately seek a better a better future. Um, Moving forward, my gender-based violence page, gender-based violence um, generally can be described as harmful acts that are committed based upon one's gender, and it includes physical, sexual, or mental threats, coercion, or other impacts on freedom and autonomy. So that's just sort of the general version. And unfortunately, gender-based violence is way more prevalent upon those at the border, um, and it relates directly to the ideals surrounding deterrence, you know, um, and the fact that these acts are happening and communities are continuing to ignore it at the border. Um, Further, women, children, and unaccompanied minors are typically at the heart of gender-based violence. And gender-based violence creates a unique intersectional layer in immigrant and migrant communities. I have a key statistic that I would like to point out that I think is very important to sort of give you an overview of how prominent this issue actually is at the border. So, 52.8% experienced psychological violence, 10.8% experienced kidnapping, 53.8% experienced theft, 22.6% experienced physical assault, and 14.2% experienced rape. And this is from a 2023 scholarly study that was conducted surrounding gender-based violence towards women and children at the US-Mexico border. So again, just something to think about. Um, Moving on to my mental health, PTSD, and trauma page. Um, Again, I mentioned that gender-based violence plays an intersectional layer, which directly relates and is connected to mental health challenges. Mental health, PTSD, and trauma are all challenges faced by vulnerable immigrant and migrant populations. And it's almost a given in those whom have suffered for gender-based violence as well. Um, as well for them to have mental health trauma or some sort of PTSD. Um, both of these challenges, gender-based violence and mental health issues, go hand in hand and are very imperative to examine here. Um, Again, a little bit of encouragement as you listen and read through my compendium. I nudge you to imagine yourself in the shoes of this vulnerable population. And again, perhaps practicing having some empathy, sort of, you know, imagining yourself within the shoes, having to deal with crossing the border, Border Patrol agents, the conditions, the vulnerability, along with being subject to gender-based violence that then creates this long-lasting trauma that these individuals have to deal with. Um, Another statistical analysis, this is from a 2013 study, but it really showcases here how uh, gender-based violence and mental health challenges are interconnected and have that intersectional layer. So results from a hierarchical OLS regression indicated that pre-migration experiences such as rape, sexual assault were significantly associated with worse PTSD outcomes. So again, somebody who has experienced sexual assault along the border is most likely to also have um, mental health challenges as well. And I think that's just imperative to know the sort of um, connection there, intersectional layer between the two very large topics. As you will see throughout my compendium, um, I have a coursework and scholarship page. These are 4 different works that I prepared throughout the program that I think relate heavily to the topic at hand. Um, and I encourage you to scroll or read through each one in order to better your understanding and in order to start thinking about methodologies behind immigration and vulnerable migrant communities. So the first one is coursework from JHR 505, which was Migration, Asylum, and Refugees. The title is Intersectional Barriers Faced by Unaccompanied Minors at the US-Mexico Border While Seeking Asylum or Attempting to Cross. I will highlight that I think this is probably the most prevalent one to read through as it really delves deep into those intersectional barriers faced at the border. My second one is coursework from JHR 500, Research Methods. I actually have 2 of those here. The first one is my critical literature review, and the second one is my applied research final report. Um, both of these are sort of there to promote and understand methodology and lived experiences and how examining lived experiences through scholarship or different coursework can better one's understanding or further one's empathy towards its population. Um, my last one was coursework from JHR 525, which was Critical Methodologies in Social Justice and Human Rights. The title is Methodologies Research Paper 2, which kind of goes more hand in hand with my uh, applied research final report, which you will see how those tie together and how, again, I emphasize the methodology surrounding lived experiences and really gathering data from those who have gone through these issues at the border. My references and resources page, in terms of references, I invite you to take a close look at all of the references listed on that tab within my compendium. These will all be beneficial to read through and engage closely with, as they're very core scholarship and reference to the themes of my social justice and human rights compendium. Therefore, reading through these references or scholarship will allow you to further your activism and interests and knowledge gained towards this topic. I also have a resources tab, 3 very important resources that I think will be very important. The first one is ASAP. The second one is United We Dream, and the third one is Freedom for Immigrants. All 3 provide different guides or resources for those in need regarding immigration, finding pro bono legal resources, or also being able to further your education and activism, or refer anybody in need to these resources, being able to help them out. I think they're very important, and I would really appreciate if you would check them out. And I hope that this presentation and compendium is a very educational tool for you and furthers your fight for activism. Um, just some closing remarks. Um, I really would like to thank my family and friends for pushing me to pursue my passions within the social justice and human rights master's program. I really couldn't have done it without the support from a variety of individuals. But most importantly, I could not have completed this compendium nor this degree without the love and support of my wife, Michaela. Mick was my biggest supporter throughout this program and project. And I truly thank you. And again, I thank you for listening to my video presentation and a more in-depth view of my project as a whole. I hope that you enjoy reading through and looking at the different um, tabs available to you within my social justice and human rights master's program compendium. Um, thank you very much.